commercials, theater. I did voiceover work on some commercials and things like that as well, like O. Henry Bar and so forth. And what I found was that the roles for African American men at that time, even though, yeah, Jim Brown was doing, Slaughter, and Fred Williamson was getting work, there was still a stereotype. We were either doing Sounder, where it's talking about, sort of the old days when we were slaves or butlers or that sort of thing, or we were at the other end of the spectrum where we were angry black men, and usually angry black men in the hood. It was like anything in between didn't seem to exist. And so when I started writing, either in theater, writing plays, and I started writing stories for comics and novels, one of the things I wanted to do was change that, to not only show a more honest reflection of where African Americans are in the world, but also other cultures. As you can tell, I'm not as young as this guy here. So I grew up watching a lot of old movies and adventure stories, globe-trotting adventures and mysteries, and I love those things, but again, we weren't represented. And if they went to another country, actor-wise, it was usually played by a white person in some sort of makeup. Asians were played by white people in makeup. They didn't do blacks in makeup, because I guess that would have been too much, but Polynesians, anything else, white person in makeup. So I'm not going to talk about that. Yeah. I'm not even mentioning that one.
The first birth of a nation.
Yeah, the first one, yeah. But what I'm saying is basically, even though I loved and enjoyed those films and those books, I wanted to, if I was going to write the stories, I wanted to try and be more honest and more genuine about the reflection of the characters, which means I had to do homework. So Blackjack, in this case, the visual, I have both novels, the visual of Blackjack was an African-American soldier of fortune in the 1930s, which gave me an opportunity to be involved in those globe-trotting adventure films and themes that I enjoyed, but also do what I felt was a more respectful representation of African Americans, but also the other cultures that he encountered along the way. And in doing this series, I ran into Stephen. So now, Stephen, you can talk all about you because I'm tired.
Okay. Like Alex said, I was in the business for a while. I started at '91 with my first book for a company called Personality Comics. I've worked for Marvel and DC Comics. I've co-created a character for DC called Aztec back in '96. I did a Deadpool annual for Marvel in '98. I also created my own characters too. Before I get into those characters, I work on a book now called Solar Man, which is out now in comic book stores. Solar Man.
You can get it at your table too, right?
Yeah, you get my table and at bookstores.
You want him to leave that out.
It's about a young brother that's it lives in East New York, and I don't know if you know of any heroes from East New York, but there you go.
There you go.
And he comes across some alien technology that gives him powers. And now, as a result of some situations and decisions, he is now on the run from the authorities and an alien, that's looking to get him. So pick this book up. Also worked on Watson and Holmes, which is a reimagination or retelling of the Sherlock Holmes property. We have two African-American men based in Harlem who solve crimes. They come together over a certain situation, and at that situation, they come together and solve other crimes. You have Sean Holmes, who is an OCD private investigator, and you have John Watson, who is a Army Airborne veteran, and now is working in a hospital, I believe either as an RN or an intern, I forget which one. So you have Watson Holmes, which also was nominated for 2 Eisner Awards, which is like a big deal in comics, and won 4 Glyph Awards, which is an award given out to African American heroes and creators in Philadelphia. It's based in Philadelphia. Also, I created a book called The Jala because I wanted to see. I not only over the years I was doing work for Marvel and DC, and there was really I always wanted to create my own character, but I really didn't know how to write. I just knew how to draw and tell a story with the drawings. So I came up with a story, and then after some point I learned how to do at least to come up with the basis of writing and storytelling and world building. And I came with a book called The Fringe, which is about a young woman based in a nation has been colonized and occupied by a foreign power. And she works for the corporation that's part of this foreign power, but secretly she is working for a revolutionary group trying to overthrow this power. But she's found out. She's brainwashed, transformed, apprehended, brainwashed,
and
apprehended,
transformed into.
I got a whole spiel for that. I'm just forgetting about it. Just forgetting a little bit. She was apprehended, brainwashed, and transformed into a living weapon to be used to terrorize her own people and to seek out and destroy the Fringe Revolution. And it's this book right here called The Fringe. And this is my own creation. This book I write, draw, color, letter, and design, all of it. And so that's what I do. And one more book is Ajala that I co-create with a brother named Robert Garrett, who's in the room as well. And this is about a young teen based in current-day Harlem. And she finds out her parents were once part of a secret organization. And when she finds out, she wants to join. So we follow her training. As we follow her training, we learn more about her family, the organization, and a rival group called the Quo, which is there to destabilize and exploit the community, whereas the organization she's joined, called the CSC, is there to protect and uplift the community. So we deal with a little culture, history, and current events, and a whole bunch of action. So this is available, it's not available now, but it's available through my website, nsworks.com.bigcartel.com.
And they can come to your table and get that information. No,
get
your information.
Yeah, get my information, yes.
Like I told you, I got your back.
I'm sorry, you do.
Anyway, as you can, that's too loud. As you can tell, a lot of what we focus on is a representation of people other than of the lighter hue, as I like to phrase it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. For one, me speaking for me personally, although I have an idea how Stephen feels about it, I think one of the things that we do as a disservice to ourselves is to believe, any culture, believe that we are only one thing. We are only represented by one image. You know, once we buy into that, we dehumanize ourselves. I know that, as far as I'm concerned, through my lifetime, I've met African Americans who run the gamut of personalities, skills, beliefs, and so forth, because we're human beings. So to me, it's very important that that be represented and that we not be identified by only one trait or one style or one mindset. We have to be who we are. Now, if I feel that about myself and my people, then I obviously have to feel that way about others. I cannot expect respect if I'm not giving respect. And so a lot of what I do is trying to do stories that I feel will appeal to a wide audience, not just African Americans or blacks, but also to people beyond that or outside of that experience, so that they can get a sense of who we are and start to see us as we really are, a part of this entire world, not as something separate from it. And I think we need to embrace that too. I work with a lot of young people. I do programs with young people in schools and after schools and incarcerations and so forth. And the mindset that we only have this much, we only have the block, or we only can do the city, we can't go to another country, we can't go outside. No, I mean, we can go anywhere we want as long as we do the homework, take the skill set in mind, have the right attitude about respecting ourselves and presenting ourselves properly. And sometimes to do that, starting in a young age, we need heroes that look like us. You know, I grew up looking at heroes that did not look like me, but I also wasn't processing that as a problem. You know, there was some racism that I encountered, but it was minor compared to what some of my friends went through. So for me, if I'm looking at Superman and I want to be a superpowered hero, that's what I'm imagining, me as a superpowered hero. I didn't have that mindset of, oh, well, he's not black, so I can't do that. My thing was, I can do that. You know, I can be that. I can act these things out. And as I started writing as a kid and then eventually wanted to be an actor, even when I went on auditions, if the audition notice did not say white, male, blah, 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 or white or Asian or whatever, female, blah, blah, I went. If I thought I was the right age, that I could play that part, I went. And you could see the faces of people, what's he doing? Did we write that? Did we put black down? You know, you could see it. And some of them wanting to say, no, look, you don't belong here, you know that. And others going, you know, so, but I would go. And sometimes I got the parts. And you would have directors and people say to me, you know, I wasn't even thinking about, but you could. And I said, yes, I can. You know, yes, I can. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So part of that, you know, someone said, well, that was really naive of you. No, it wasn't. If anything, pardon my French, it was ballsy. You know, if anything, it was me saying, I don't see the problem. This is not my problem. It's yours. It's not mine. You know? And ultimately, moving forward on that, you do a series where we're in the 30s, and we were there. And yeah, we were treated dirty, but we were also soldiers, explorers, sailors, scientists. We did all that at a time when we weren't supposed to be able to do that. So why wouldn't I want to represent it? And if I want to respect us then anywhere else I go in that story, I also have to respect. There was a Chinese woman in the 1930s who went on an expedition with her husband, her American husband, to look for pandas in China. And she was not only disrespected by the men in the expedition, she was disrespected in China because she was a woman walking around in pants. You're not supposed to be doing that. And she's thinking, why not? I can do that. I can be here. Bessie Springfield. Anybody know that name? Okay, Google it. Bessie Springfield, black woman, late 1920s, she was adopted, talked her white Irish mother into allowing her to buy a Harley and began to tool around the South on a motorcycle starting at 19. She was the only black woman to do that at that time. May still be, for all I know. She wound up actually rolling as a dispatcher in World War II for the U.S. Army. Yeah, she ran into some stuff from our own, but bottom line, she did it. She's in the Harley Hall of Fame, all right? So we were doing things. Women were doing things. Let's represent correctly. You know, and in terms of diversity, last thing I'll say, and then I'll give it back to Steve. I'm sorry about this, Steve. I'm on a roll. Okay. Yeah. One of the things that used to happen to black writers in mainstream comics back in the 80s and 90s in particular was not so much to the artists, not so much to the illustrators, okay? He's going to draw Batman or Spider-Man or The Flash or whatever. That's cool. Right? He can draw lead. Maybe it's because the pencil points were black. I don't know. But writers, we got called when there was a black character in the story. Okay? Oh, we're doing a story about this urban thing. We better call Alex. We better call so-and-so. Because obviously I could write about blacks because that's what I am. But I couldn't possibly write about anything else. At the same time, as a ghostwriter, I'm writing Nancy Drew. Now, I swear to you, and you're going to find this hard to believe, but I was never a 19-year-old white girl. See, she doesn't believe me. No, really, I wasn't. She's going, mm-hmm. No, really, seriously, check me out. I wasn't. But I could write that. I could write the Hardy Boys, Nancy. I could write about old men that I hadn't at that time been. So if I could do that, why can't I write Superman? Why couldn't I write Batman? What's the problem? And why was it that a white person could write about other cultures, but obviously we could only? And it took a while to thank you, and it took a while to break through that. And part of it was us coming to the table, the desk with our stuff and being correct, representing ourselves correctly, not blowing in there and cursing them out and saying things about their parents, though we may have wanted to, you know. But going in there and saying, look, I've been trained professionally, I am acting professionally, here's my work which is professional, hire me. And making it harder and harder for them to say, I don't know, damn, this is good. But no, this is really, okay, let's squeeze them in. So part of it is not only just prying the door open or kicking the door open, but sometimes it's just knocking and saying, hey, I'm ready. And someone going, yeah, you are, come on in. So that's a part of what this is about, and the whole thing about this panel, and we're going to open this up to Q&A, because that's really what we want to do, right? Yeah, okay.
Take the pressure off.
Yeah, that too. But part of the reason of this panel is really trying to express what Steve and I and others like us have experienced over how many years, Steve, in the business? Come on, you can say it.
No, 20. I've been in the business 25 years.
He's 25, and I think, when did you start, in 91?
91, yeah.
So my performance years are earlier than his, but my comic years are just behind him. So if we count all my years up in media, it's about 35 years. And rolling through that, I am always reminded of the reality that when I was born, we couldn't eat in certain restaurants, we couldn't ride in the front of certain buses. There were places in this country we could not go and jobs we could not have. Don't tell me nothing's changed. There's room for improvement, yes, but things do change, and we just got to keep working at it. So anyway, that's my thing. So.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I've had some experiences at whether DC or I also do storyboards, but it wasn't really that heavy. I mean, at least I did see. I mean, there was stuff that happened because people are good at hiding stuff. And so maybe it's in the hiring practices or how they responded to people when certain jobs were done. For instance, I know plenty of peers of mine who, okay, we're told when we get into the business, the comic book business, is that, you know, if you do a job, you do it right, you hand your pages in on time, and do a professional job, you'll get more work. Now, I did that with Aztec. Matter of fact, I did it so well that I got a bonus because all the books did not ship late. And I was figured, okay, maybe I should get something else afterwards. I didn't. I mean, I got a few here and there, but no regular title. But I see other peers of mine who did less work, maybe were flaky, didn't do, maybe late on their deadlines, still get work on top of work. So it's a little bit frustrating happening to an artist, and so at some point, I had to feel that I couldn't just do work in comics, and if I'm going to do work in comics, I have to do my own stuff as well. So it was a mixture of diversifying my portfolio, meaning trying to work in other markets like storyboards. I did storyboards for commercials, and doing my own book as well.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I did that, it's so much more freer. I mean, you're not getting a paycheck, and you might not. Only payment you may get is when we do conventions, unless it gets picked up or optioned for a movie or animation or a game or a TV show. However, but just being able to put images, nuances of ourselves in these books, whether it's especially a Jala, which is the young teen book I'm telling you about, because that takes place in current day Harlem. I could just put things that I've experienced in Harlem or in Brooklyn, people who I've come across over the years, who I've known on the street, in rallies, or activists, or just street corner people, everyday people or anyday people doing things. One time there was, like I said, one time in Watson Holmes, now that takes place in Harlem. I could do a bunch of stuff with that now, but I'm not writing the book, but as the artist, I could have my input with the writer. The writer was Brandon Easton for Watson Holmes issue 6 that I did. Now he had a part in the book where there's a politician, and the politician is walking around with security. So I go to Brandon, and he's a black writer as well. I go to him, how about let's have the security be the FOI, Fruit of Islam, Nation of Islam Security. He said, yeah, great idea. Because they're all up in Harlem. Why not have them up there? So that was the addition I put in the book. And I couldn't do that in Green Lantern. Couldn't do that in, Robin or Batman. I couldn't. So, and they do security for other people. They loan their security service out, whether it's a Christian church, a function, organization, celebrities. So it just fit right in with that. So, doing characters of color or black characters, you can really explore the nuances of characters, not just be limited to stereotypical characters, You have since multiple characters in the book. You can do different people, like you can relate characters that you grew up with, people you know, and just mix them in the book, and and have a well-rounded versions of us that are on the book, in the book, and that could be someday on the screen. I mean, a wonderful example of that was when Luke Cage came out. And it's, you know, I mean, we see people, one example of that one was when, I don't know if you all saw Luke Cage. You everyone seen Luke Cage? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Good.
We'll go over to his house, you know, watch it there.
So with episode 2, when they did Pop's origin story, after he's hemming that one dude up in the alleyway, he comes out and gets his picture taken. He gets his picture taken by a historical figure named Jamel Shabazz. He says, "Okay, Jamel, we'll pose for you all." So he has 2 books out called A Time Before Crack and Back in the Day. They're photo essays of the neighborhood of us before those eras. You know, people, you know, doing the poses and the tracksuits, the girls with the earrings and the haircuts and whatnot. So those are just like the early hip hop days. So that's that dude that took a picture of them. His name is Jamel Shabazz, and he's a historical figure. He's a community figure that does photo essays of our neighborhood, still does it, and was doing it back in the day as well, which is named for one of his books, like I said. So, you know, you get opportunities to do that as a creator in these books or in film. Once you have the opportunity or get the opportunity to do that, you can do that and give us a more well-rounded view of ourselves.
I just want to piggyback, and then oh, yeah, please. I just want to piggyback that just a little bit, because it is so exciting when we both do this, when you do your homework on this. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I have a buddy of mine named Chris Ryan. He's a nice Irish boy, but he's co-writing with me on some of the new Blackjack stuff. We're doing some novels as well as graphic novels. And he came up with this wacky setting. I say wacky because I never would have thought of this. So I'm going to blow it a little bit. The book's coming out in November. It's called Dark at the End of the Rainbow. And Aaron, again, we're a black man, 1930s, right, is called out to Los Angeles, California to bodyguard a certain individual because a string of murders have been happening on the set. Now, he says normally this is not what he does. He's not a detective, right? But he's a bodyguard. So where is he? He's on the set of The Wizard of Oz, right? Yeah, munchkins and all, right? Okay. You know, because Chris loves to put Aaron in those situations where it just doesn't look like the brother belongs, right? So the copy of the book, we write, you know, he's in a land of bright lights, witches, and murder. Can even Aaron survive in a world that embraces all the colors of the rainbow except his, right? So we have this, and we had a good time working on the book, and when the things were, I happened to be on the web doing some research, and what do I find out? There was a black private detective in LA in the 30s who did a lot of behind-the-scenes work for the Hollywood studios. And was always on the down low, like some of those stars, like Errol Flynn and so forth, want to go up into the dark part of town, you know. This is the brother that would make sure they got in and got out alive. You know, this was the one who did some of the cover-ups when some of these people did something stupid. This was the brother, right? He really existed. So what do we go back and do? And throw in a line where Aaron says, why didn't you get so-and-so to do this? Well, he's on another assignment right now, you know. So you get to bring light to things that have been in the dark or in the closet or